The stars looked different today. Commander Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable and watched the endless black space through the main window. His ship was huge, bigger than most buildings back on Earth. It had thick armor, powerful guns, and a crew of 800 brave men and women. But out here in the empty void between star systems, it felt very small. "Sir, we're picking up something strange," said Captain So-young Kim from her station. She wore the blue uniform of the communications team and had been listening to radio. Signals from across the galaxy for 3 days. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she tried to make sense of what she was hearing. Hyun-woo walked over to her station. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the beeping of computers. What kind of strange? So-young frowned at her screen. "It's a distress call, but it's very weak. The signal is breaking up badly. I think it's coming from the Kepler 442 system, about 4 days away from here. Can you clean it up?" She worked on her computer for several minutes. The other bridge crew watched and waited. Finally, a voice came through the speakers. It was not human. The words sounded like music mixed with the sound of wind chimes. "This is Elder Kira of the Valeri people on Kepler 442b. We are under attack. The scourge has come to our world. Our cities are burning. Our people are dying. Please, anyone who can hear this message, we need help. We have sent this call to every world we know, but no one answers. The scourge fleet is too strong. We cannot fight them alone. Please help us." The message repeated several times, then cut to static. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the scourge. They were the nightmare that every species in the galaxy feared. They came from the dark spaces between stars, and wherever they went, entire worlds died. They were not like other armies that wanted land or resources. The scourge wanted something much worse. They wanted to turn every living thing into more of themselves. "How old is this message?" Hyun-woo asked. So-young checked her instruments. "About 3 weeks old, sir. But I'm still picking up newer signals, very weak ones. I think some of them are still alive down there." Hyun-woo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. 3 weeks was a long time when fighting the scourge. Most worlds fell in a few days. If the Valeri were still sending signals after 3 weeks, they were either very lucky or very good at hiding. "Sir," said Min-ho Lee from the weapons station. He was young but very smart about military tactics. "The Valeri sent this message to everyone, right? That means other species got it too. Maybe someone is already helping them." "Check the fleet databases," Hyun-woo ordered. "See if any allied ships are heading to that system." Min-ho worked at his computer for several minutes. When he looked up, his face was grim. "Nothing, sir. No Federation ships, no Republic forces, no independent fleets. Everyone is staying away from that system." "They're scared," said Chief Engineer Da-yoon Choi from her station near the back of the bridge. She was older than most of the crew and had seen many battles. "The scourge has eaten 12 worlds in the past year. Nobody wants to be number 13. Hyun-woo understood their fear. The scourge was different from any enemy humanity had ever fought. They did not take prisoners. They did not make deals. They turned their victims into living weapons and sent them against their own families and friends. Even if you won a battle against them, the cost was usually too high to bear. But the Valeri were different too. Hyun-woo had read about them in the cultural databases. They were a peaceful people who had never hurt anyone. They were artists and scientists and philosophers. They had shared their knowledge freely with other species and asked for nothing. In return, they had even helped Earth with medical research that saved millions of human lives. How long would it take us to reach their system?" The engineer checked her charts. 4 days at full speed, sir. But we'd be going in alone. The nearest human fleet is 2 weeks away in the opposite direction. What about their defenses? Do the Valeri have a military? Min-ho pulled up files on his screen. Not really, sir. They have some police ships and cargo vessels, but nothing designed for real combat. They've been peaceful for over 1,000 years. They never expected to need warships. Hyun-woo closed his eyes and thought hard. The Indomitable was a powerful ship, but it was just one ship. The Scourge always traveled in large fleets. They would be outnumbered by at least 10 to 1, maybe more. If they went to help the Valeri, there was a very good chance they would all die. But if they did nothing, the Valeri would definitely die. And after the Scourge finished with them, they would use that world as a base to attack other systems. Eventually, they might even reach Earth. "Sir," So Young said quietly, "I'm getting another signal." The new voice was different from Elder Kira's. It was younger and full of fear. "This is Teo. I'm hiding in the old tunnels under the capital city. The sky demons are everywhere. They took my family, they took my friends. They're changing them into monsters. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. We don't want to die like this." The message ended with the sound of distant explosions. Hyen Wu looked around at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. He could see the fear in their eyes, but he could also see something else. They were humans, and humans did not abandon their friends. "So Young, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what we found and what we're planning to do." "Yes, sir." "What should I tell them we're planning to do?" Hyen Wu walked back to his command chair and sat down. "Tell them we're going to remind the galaxy why you don't mess with people under human protection." He pressed the button for the ship-wide communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor and room on the massive vessel. "All hands, this is Commander Park. We have received a distress call from the Valeri system. They are under attack by the Scourge and have been fighting alone for 3 weeks. No other ships are coming to help them. We are going to change that. I know this is dangerous. I know we might not come back. But these people helped save human lives when we needed medical research. They shared their knowledge with us when they didn't have to. Now they need our help. We're going in. All departments, prepare for combat operations. We reached their system in 4 days, Park out." As the ship began to change course toward the Kepler 442 system, Hyen Wu stared out at the stars again. They still looked different, but now he knew why. They looked like they were waiting for something to happen. Something big was coming. The meeting room on the Indomitable was packed with worried faces. Commander Hyen Wu Park sat at the head of the long metal table, looking at his senior officers. They had been talking for 2 hours, and the arguments were getting louder. "This is suicide," said Medical Officer Jae Seung-yoon, shaking his head. "The reports from other Scourge attacks are clear. They don't just kill people, they change them, turn them into weapons. Even if we somehow win, how many of our crew will we lose?" Marine Colonel Sujin Han leaned forward in her chair. She was a tough woman with scars on her hands from many battles. "We've never run from a fight before. Why start now?" "Because this isn't just any fight," Min-Ho Lee said from across the table. "I've been studying Scourge tactics all day. They use swarm attacks. Hundreds of small bioships that attack from all directions. They don't care about losses because they can just make more ships from the dead crews." Chief Engineer Do Yoon Choi had been quiet for most of the meeting. Now she spoke up. "There's something else we need to think about. The Scourge has never fought humans before." Everyone turned to look at her. She was the oldest person in the room and had been building and fixing warships for 30 years. "What do you mean?" Hyen Wu asked. Yoon pulled out her tablet and put it on the table so everyone could see the screen. "Look at these battle reports. Every species the Scourge has fought uses the same basic tactics. Long-range energy weapons, defensive formations, trying to keep the enemy far away. Very predictable." She swiped to another screen. "But humans fight differently. We get up close. We use kinetic weapons that punch through armor. We board enemy ships. We use nuclear weapons. Most species think we're crazy for fighting the way we do." "The Scourge won't expect it," Sujin said, understanding what Yoon meant. "Exactly. Their bioships are designed to resist energy weapons and acid attacks from other Scourge creatures. But our railguns shoot solid metal at incredible speed. Our missiles carry explosive warheads. They've never had to deal with that before." Han Wu felt a small spark of hope. "What about their ground forces?" "Same thing," Sujin said. Every report says they use converted victims as foot soldiers, shambling masses that rely on numbers and biological weapons. They've never fought trained Marines with modern equipment. Jae-sung still looked worried. But what about their infection? Ability, if they touch our people? I've been thinking about that too, Yoon said. The Scourge converts people using some kind of biological virus or parasite. But our combat suits are sealed systems. Full environmental protection. If we can keep the suits intact, they shouldn't be able to infect us. Minho was looking at tactical displays on his tablet. There's another advantage. Look at the size. Difference. Scourge bioships are small and fast, but they're not heavily armored. The Indomitable has armor plating that's 3 feet thick in some places. Their weapons might not be able to hurt us badly. What about numbers? Hyun-woo asked. How many ships are we likely to face? Based on other attacks, probably between 50 and 100 bioships, Minho said. Plus whatever ground forces they have on the planet. The room fell quiet. Even with their advantages, those were not good odds. Captain So-young Kim spoke for the first time. I've been monitoring their communications. The signal is getting weaker, but they're still sending messages. Elder Kira is organizing survivors in underground shelters. Someone named Teo is leading rescue missions to save people from the converted areas. They're not giving up. How long do you think they can hold out? Hyun-woo asked. Hard to say. Maybe a few more days, maybe a week if they're lucky. Hyun-woo looked around the table at his officers. These were good people, smart people, brave people. He had served with most of them for years. Some had families back on Earth. Some had dreams of retiring to quiet worlds far from war. All of them were willing to risk their lives for strangers they had never met. Yin, can you push the engines harder? Get us there faster? The engineer nodded. I can give you another day, maybe 2. But I'll have to run the reactors hot. Dangerous, but doable. Do it. Minho, I want you to study everything we know about Scourge tactics. Find their weaknesses. Plan our attack. Yes, sir. Sujin, get your Marines ready. Full combat gear, sealed suits, maximum ammunition load. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. My people are already preparing, sir. Jae-sung, work on medical countermeasures. Anything that might help if someone gets infected. The medical officer nodded reluctantly. I'll do what I can, but we don't have much data on how their infection process works. So-young, keep monitoring their communications. I want to know everything that's happening down there. Already on it, sir. Hyun-woo stood up. There's one more thing. I'm going to activate the Berserker Protocol. The room went completely silent. Everyone stared at him in shock. The Berserker Protocol was humanity's most dangerous military secret. It allowed human ships to operate far beyond safe limits. Reactors pushed to dangerous levels. Weapons charged beyond normal capacity. Computer systems given near total control to react faster than human reflexes. It made ships incredibly powerful, but it also made them incredibly dangerous to their own crews. Sir, Yoon said carefully, the Berserker Protocol has never been tested on a ship this size. The stress on the hull alone could tear us apart, I know. But it's also our best chance of winning this fight. The Scourge won't expect a single human ship to fight like a Berserker. They'll expect us to run or call for help. What about Earth Command? Jae-sung asked. Shouldn't we wait for orders? So-young looked at her communication logs. I sent our message 4 hours ago. Even if they respond immediately, we won't get an answer for another day. By then, the Valeri might all be dead. Then we make the decision ourselves, Hyun-woo said. That's what commanders do. That's what humans do. He looked each of his officers in the eye. I'm not ordering anyone to do this. If you want to object, now is the time. If you want to request transfer to non-essential duties, I'll approve it. This is voluntary. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, Sujin smiled grimly. Hell, sir. We came all the way out here to fight aliens. Might as well fight the worst ones. The Scourge picked the wrong species to mess with, Minho added. And the wrong humans to ignore a distress call, Dayun said. Haiyan Wu felt proud of his crew. This was why humanity had survived so many wars. This was why they had made it to the stars. When things got impossible, humans didn't quit. They got angry. All right then? We reached the Kepler system in 2 days. Use that time to prepare for the biggest fight of our lives. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Valeri. We're fighting to show the galaxy that when the monsters come calling, humanity answers. As the officers filed out of the meeting room, Han Wu stayed behind and looked out the small window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valeri were hiding in caves and tunnels, waiting for help that everyone said would never come. They were wrong, help was coming, and it was angry. Deep in the engine room of the Indomitable, Chief Engineer Dayun Choi watched her instruments with growing concern. The fusion reactors were running at 90% capacity, far higher than was safe for extended periods. The metal walls around her hummed with dangerous energy. "Ma'am, we're getting stress fractures in Conduit 7, called out Engineer Bio Ram from across the room. She was young and had joined the crew only 6 months ago, but she was learning fast. "Reinforce it with emergency patches," Dayun said. "We need these reactors running hot for another 36 hours. The ship was moving through space faster than it had ever moved before. They were riding the gravity well of a dying star, using its massive pull to increase their speed while hiding their energy signature. It was a dangerous trick that few ship captains would attempt. But it was working. On the bridge, Commander Haiyan Wu Park studied the tactical display. They were still 18 hours away from the Kepler system, but long-range sensors were already picking up disturbing information. "Sir, you need to see this," Min-Ho Lee said from his weapons station. His voice was tight with worry. The main screen showed a computer model of the Kepler 442 system. The planet where the Valeri lived was marked in blue, but it was surrounded by dozens of red dots. "Scourge bioships?" Haiyan Wu asked. "Yes, sir, but that's not the worst part." Min-Ho changed the display. "Look at this." A new image appeared on the screen. It showed something massive in orbit around the planet. It was easily 10 times bigger than the Indomitable, with a twisted organic shape that hurt to look at. "What is that thing?" "We're not sure, sir." "It's unlike anything in our databases. The energy readings are off the charts. I think it might be some kind of construction project." Captain So-Young Kim looked up from her communication station. "Sir, I'm picking up new transmissions from the planet. Elder Kira is still alive, but the situation is getting worse." "Put it on speaker." The bridge filled with the musical voice of the Valeri leader, but now it sounded tired and scared. "This is Elder Kira to any ships that might be listening. We have retreated to the deep caves beneath Mount Thala. The sky demons have taken the surface. They are building something terrible in the sky above our world. We can feel it in our crystals. It fills us with dread. If anyone receives this message, please stay away. Save yourselves. Do not let our fate become yours." The message ended with sounds of distant explosions and screaming. "She's telling people to stay away," So-Young said quietly. "Because she thinks nobody is coming," Haiyan Wu replied. "She's trying to protect others from sharing their fate." Medical Officer Jae Sung-yoon entered the bridge carrying a tablet full of research data. "Sir, I've been studying the limited information we have about scourge infection methods. I think I might have some countermeasures. Tell me." "The infection appears to be a combination of biological virus and nanomushroom technology. It rewrites the victim's DNA and neural pathways. But it takes time. The process isn't instant." "How much time?" "Based on the few surviving accounts, maybe 15 to 20 minutes for full conversion. If we can get infected people to medical treatment quickly enough, we might be able to stop or reverse the process." "It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing." Haiyan Wu nodded. "Good work. What about our combat suits?" "I've been working with Daeyin to upgrade the environmental seals. The new configuration should provide complete protection against biological contamination. But if the suit gets breached, then we have 20 minutes to get that person too." "Medical treatment?" "Exactly." Marine Colonel Sujin Han's voice came over the intercom. Commander, to the Marine Bay, please. You need to see what we've prepared. Han Wu left the bridge and took the elevator down to the marine section of the ship. When the doors opened, he saw something that made him smile for the first time in days. The Marine Bay had been transformed into a weapons preparation area. Sujin's soldiers were loading ammunition, checking equipment, and preparing for battle. But these weren't the standard Marines who had left Earth. These were something new. We call it combat enhancement, Sujin explained, leading him through the organized chaos. It's a combination of stimulant drugs, neural boosters, and temporary genetic modifications. Makes us faster, stronger, and more resistant to pain. Han Wu watched as Marines loaded shells into weapons that looked more like small cannons than rifles. What about side effects? Fatigue, muscle pain, possible organ damage if used for more than 48 hours. But for a short battle, it gives us a huge advantage. One of the Marines, a young woman named Arin, looked up from her weapon maintenance. Sir, we've also been studying the battle recordings from other Scourge attacks. Their ground forces move in predictable patterns, swarm tactics, no individual thinking. Our enhanced reflexes should let us cut through them like they're standing. Still, what about their flyers? That's where these come in, Sujin said, pointing to a rack of weapons Han Wu had never seen before. They look like rocket launchers crossed with shotguns. Fletchette bursters, another Marine explained. Fires a cloud of metal fragments that expands as it travels. Perfect for taking down multiple small targets. Han Wu was impressed. His crew had used the travel time well. They weren't just rushing into battle unprepared. They were adapting, innovating, becoming something the Scourge had never faced before. How long until we reach the system? Sujin asked. 16 hours. We'll drop out of FTL at the edge of the system and assess the situation. What's the plan once we get there? Han Wu had been thinking about that question for hours. We hit them hard and fast, no warning, no negotiation. The Berserker Protocol will give us about 30 minutes of maximum combat effectiveness before we start taking serious damage from the stress. 30 minutes against 50 or more bioships? It'll have to be enough. Back on the planet, Elder Kira stood in the ancient caves beneath Mount Thala, surrounded by the last free Valeri on their world. There were maybe 3,000 of them, left out of a population of millions. The caves were filled with the soft glow of crystal formations that had grown there over thousands of years. Elder, said Teo, running up to her with tears in his crystal blue eyes. The sky demons have found our entrance to the east. They're sending infected ones down into the tunnels. Kira closed her eyes and felt the pain of her people through their shared crystal network. Each death was like losing a piece of her soul. How long do we have? Maybe a few hours. They're moving slowly because the tunnels are narrow, but they keep coming. Then we make our final stand here, in the chamber of our ancestors. Kira looked around at the faces of her people. They were artists and scientists, philosophers and teachers. None of them were warriors. But they would fight because there was nothing else left to do. Elder, said one of the young Valeri, what about the old defense systems? The ones our people built long ago, before we chose the path of peace? Kira had almost forgotten about. Those ancient weapons, buried deep in the mountain and unused for over 1,000 years. Teo, do you remember the old stories? The ones about the crystal warriors who fought the shadow plague? Yes, Elder, my grandfather told them to me when I was small. Those stories were not myths. Our ancestors faced something like this before. The defense systems they built might still work. But Elder, using those weapons would mean abandoning our path of peace. Kira looked at the faces around her. Children hiding behind their parents. Elderly Valeri who had lived their entire lives without violence. Artists whose only weapons were paintbrushes and musical instruments. Sometimes, she said quietly, peace must be defended with strength. Sometimes choosing not to fight is the same as choosing to die, she turned to Teo. Gather everyone who knows the old engineering techniques. We're going to wake up systems that have slept for a millennium. As the Valeri began their desperate preparations, far above them in space, something else was stirring. The massive construction in orbit was almost complete. When it finished, it would send a signal across the galaxy, calling every Scourge fleet to this system. Kepler 442 would become the staging ground for an invasion that would consume 100 worlds. But the Scourge had made one critical mistake. They had assumed, like everyone else, that no help was coming for the VALARI dot in the darkness between stars. The Indomitable continued its dangerous approach, riding gravity wells and running silent. On board, 800 humans prepared for a battle that would decide the fate of an entire species. They were outnumbered. They were alone. They were facing an enemy that had never been defeated. They couldn't wait to get started. Commander Hyanwu Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the Kepler 442 system appear on the main screen. It looked like a vision of hell. The planet that had once been a beautiful blue and green world was now covered in dark patches. Scourge bioships swarmed around it like angry insects. And floating above it all was the massive organic structure they had seen on sensors. It was even more horrifying up close, a twisted mass of living metal and flesh that pulsed with evil. "Energy, sir," Minho Lee said from his weapons station. "I count 67 bioships. Most of them are small attack vessels, but there are 12 larger ones that look like troop carriers." "What about that thing in orbit?" "It's huge, sir. At least 12 kilometers long and 4 kilometers wide. The energy readings suggest it's some kind of command ship or construction platform." Chief Engineer Dain Choi's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Commander, the Berserker protocol is ready to activate. Once I start it, we'll have 30 minutes of maximum combat power before the ship systems start breaking down." "Understood. All stations, report readiness. Weapons ready," Minho said. "Communications ready," So Young reported. "Medical teams?" "Standing by," came Jae-sung's voice. Marines locked and loaded. Sujin added from the Marine Bay. Hyanwu took a deep breath. This was it, no turning back now. "Do you activate Berserker protocol? All hands, this is the commander. We are now entering combat. Show these monsters what humans do when someone hurts our friends." The ship began to change. Deep in the engine room, fusion reactors pushed past safe operating limits. The lights on the bridge flickered as massive amounts of power flowed through. The ship's systems. Weapons that had been charging for hours reached full capacity and kept climbing. "Berserker protocol active," Yu reported. "All systems operating at 150% capacity. Minho, target the bioships closest to the planet. Let's clear a path for our Marines." The Indomitable dropped out of its hiding position and roared toward the Scourge fleet at incredible speed. The bioships, caught completely by surprise, scattered in all directions like startled animals. "Main guns, fire!" The ship's massive rail guns spoke with thunder that shook every deck. Solid metal slugs moving at incredible speed smashed into the bioships. The Scourge vessels, designed to resist energy weapons and acid attacks, had no defense against kinetic projectiles. 3 bioships exploded in the first salvo. So Young broadcast on all frequencies. Captain Kim's voice echoed across space. On every radio band. "This is the United Earthship Indomitable. Your nightmare has a name, and it's human." The Scourge fleet began to respond, but they were confused and disorganized. They had never faced anything like this before. The bioships fired their organic weapons, streams of acid and living projectiles that could eat through most armor. But the Indomitable's thick metal plates held firm. Missile batteries fire at will. Dozens of nuclear-tipped missiles streaked from the human ship toward the bioships. The Scourge vessels tried to dodge, but the missiles were too fast, and there were too many of them. Explosions lit up space like tiny suns. "Sir," Minho shouted over the noise of battle, "the large bioships are heading for the planet's surface. I think they're trying to reinforce their ground troops." "Not if I can help it. Target those troop carriers. Priority fire." The battle became a deadly dance. The Indomitable spun and twisted through space, its enhanced systems allowing it to move in ways that should have been impossible for a ship its size. The bioships swarmed around it, trying to overwhelm it with numbers, but human weapons and tactics proved superior. Drop pods away. Sujin's voice came over the intercom. Hyan-Wu watched on the tactical display as dozens of small pods launched from the Indomitable toward the planet's surface. Each pod contained 10 Marines in full combat gear, enhanced for battle, and ready to fight. So young, try to raise Elder Kira, let her know help has arrived. I'm trying, sir, but there's a lot of interference from the Scourge jamming systems. On the planet's surface, the first drop pods smashed into the ground near the Valeri caves. The pods split open and Marines poured out, their enhanced reflexes and modern weapons making them deadly opponents for the shambling Scourge ground forces. Marine A-Rin led her squad toward a group of infected Valeri who were trying to break into the cave system. The poor creatures had once been beautiful, graceful beings, but the Scourge infection had turned them into twisted monsters with claws and teeth. Remember, she called to her squad, these were once people. Make it quick and clean. The Marines opened fire with their flechette bursters. Clouds of metal fragments swept through the infected creatures, ending their suffering in seconds. It was mercy as much as warfare. Deep in the caves, Elder Kira felt a tremor run through the mountain. What was that? Teo ran to her with excitement in his voice. Elder, someone is fighting the sky demons. There are explosions in the sky and sounds of battle on the surface. Is it possible? Has someone actually come to help us? Before Teo could answer, a new voice came through their communication crystals. It was speaking their language, but with a strange accent they had never heard before. Elder Kira, this is Colonel Sujin Han of the United Earth Marines. We are here to help. Please respond if you can hear this message. Kira felt tears of joy flow down her crystal cheeks. Earth? The humans have come? Yes, Elder, we received your distress call. We're here to get you out. In space, the battle was reaching its climax. The Indomitable had destroyed over half the bioships, but the massive command vessel was finally responding to the threat. The huge structure began to turn toward the human ship, weapon ports opening along its organic hull. Sir, Minho said with alarm, that big ship is charging some kind of weapon. Energy readings are off the charts. Time until it can fire? 2 minutes, maybe less. Hyan-Wu made a quick decision. All power to engines. We're going to ram it. Sir? Dae-Yoon's voice came from engineering. The ship can't take that kind of impact, even with the Berserker protocol active. It doesn't have to survive the impact. It just has to deliver our nuclear warheads directly to their hull. The Indomitable turned toward the massive Scourge vessel and accelerated to maximum speed. The remaining bioships tried to intercept it, but they were too few and too slow. The human ship smashed through them like they were paper. All hands, brace for impact. Han-Wu announced that the collision was spectacular. The front section of the Indomitable crumpled as it hit the Scourge command ship, but its nuclear warheads were still intact. They detonated inside the enemy vessel, tearing it apart from within on the planet's surface. The Marines watched as a second sun appeared in the sky. The massive explosion sent shockwaves through space that could be seen even in daylight. Did we get it? Sujin asked over the radio. Oh yeah, came Minho's voice from the damaged bridge. We got it good, but the victory came at a cost. The Indomitable was badly damaged. Its hull cracked and several decks opened to space. Emergency lights flickered throughout the ship as damage control teams worked to keep vital systems running. Casualty report, Hyan-Wu ordered. 43 dead, over 100 injured, Jae-Sung reported. But the ship is still functional. We can still fight. On the planet, the effect of destroying the command ship was immediate. The remaining Scourge creatures began to act confused and disorganized. Without the central intelligence controlling them, they were just individual monsters. Instead of a coordinated army? Elder Kira, Sujin's voice came through the communication crystals. We're coming down to get you. Can you guide us to your location? Yes, Colonel. Follow the crystal formations. They will lead you to us. As the Marines fought their way deeper into the cave system, they discovered something amazing. The Valeri had managed to activate their ancient defense systems. Crystal weapons that fired beams of pure energy were cutting down scourge creatures throughout the tunnels. "Elder," Teo said as he operated one of the crystal weapons, "I understand now why our ancestors built these. Sometimes peace can only be preserved through strength." When the Marines finally reached the main chamber, they found 3,000 Valeri survivors, tired and scared but alive. Elder Kira stepped forward to greet the humans who had risked everything to save her people. "You came," she said simply. "When no one else would come, you came." Colonel Su Jin-han removed her helmet, revealing a face marked by battle, but filled with determination. "We're humans, ma'am. We don't abandon our friends." Above them, in the damaged but still fighting, indomitable, Commander Hyun-woo Park looked at the tactical display. The immediate threat was over, but there were still scourge creatures on the planet. The real work was just beginning. "So Young, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we found the Valeri alive. Tell them we won." "What should I say about our status, sir?" Hen-woo looked around his damaged bridge at his brave crew. They had done the impossible. They had faced the galaxy's greatest nightmare and emerged victorious. Tell them the indomitable is still indomitable. And tell them to send more ships. We've got a planet to clean up and people to save. The battle was over, but the war for the Valari's freedom had just begun. 3 days after the great battle, the indomitable was dying. Commander Han-woo Park walked through the damaged corridors of his ship, stepping over debris and avoiding the sparking cables that hung from broken ceiling panels. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls, and the air tasted of smoke and burned metal. The collision with the Scourge command ship had done more damage than they first realized. Hull breaches on 7 decks. Main engines operating at 30% capacity. Life support systems failing on the lower levels. Worst of all, they had lost 112 crew members, including Min-ho Lee, who died when a plasma conduit exploded during the battle. "Sir," Chief Engineer Je Yun-choi said as she met him near the engine room, "I've got bad news. The main reactor is becoming unstable. The stress from the Berserker Protocol damaged the containment systems. How long do we have?" "Maybe 2 days. Maybe less. After that, we'll either lose power completely or the reactor will explode." Hyun-woo felt a cold weight in his stomach. "Can we repair it?" "Not with the parts we have. We'd need a full shipyard and several weeks of work." Through the ship's damaged hull, they could see the planet Kepler 442b slowly rotating below them. The world that had been under attack for weeks was finally free, but it was badly wounded. Dark patches covered the surface where scourge bioweapons had poisoned the land. Entire cities lay in ruins. "Commander," Captain So-young Kim's voice came over the intercom, "you need to come to the bridge. We're getting strange readings from the planet." Han-woo made his way to the bridge, where the surviving bridge crew worked at damaged stations. The main screen flickered but still functioned, showing a view of the planet's surface. "What am I looking at?" "Sir, the Scourge didn't just attack the Valeri. They were building something. Look at this." The screen zoomed in on a massive construction site near the planet's north pole. It was a complex of organic buildings and machinery that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. "What is it?" "We think it's a breeding facility," said the new tactical officer, a young woman named Haijin who had been promoted after Minho's death. "The Scourge were planning to use this world as a base to create more of their kind." "Is it still active?" "No, sir. When we destroyed their command ship, all the Scourge technology went dormant. But if another Scourge fleet arrives and reactivates it double quotes Hyun-woo understood. The facility was like a sleeping monster. If the Scourge returned, they could wake it up and begin converting the entire planet into a factory for producing bioships and ground forces. "How big is this thing?" "Huge, sir. It could probably produce thousands of bioships and millions of ground troops. If the Scourge get it working again, they could use it to attack every world in this part of the galaxy." Medical Officer Jae-sung Yoon entered the bridge carrying a tablet full of disturbing information. Sir, I've been analyzing the scourge infection process with the Valeri survivors. The situation is worse than we thought. How much worse? The infection doesn't just change people, it stores their memories and knowledge. Every person the scourge converts becomes part of their collective intelligence. They learn from every species they attack. Hyun-woo felt sick. You're saying they get smarter with each victory? Exactly, and there's more. Some of the converted Valeri are still partially aware. They're trapped inside their own bodies, conscious but unable to control their actions. It's a form of living torture. On the planet's surface, Marine Colonel Sujin Han was leading teams through the ruins of Valeri cities, searching for survivors and clearing out remaining scourge creatures. The work was dangerous and heartbreaking. Every building told a story of terror and loss. Colonel, came the voice of Marina over the radio, we found another group of survivors in the art district. About 50 Valeri, mostly children. Good work. Get them to the evacuation site. Sujin looked around at the destroyed city. Beautiful crystal buildings lay shattered. Artistic masterpieces that had taken generations to create were now piles of rubble. The scourge didn't just kill people. They destroyed cultures, histories, entire ways of life. Ma'am, said another Marine, the Valeri are asking about their converted people. They want to know if there's any way to save them. Sujin had been dreading this question. In the caves beneath the mountains, there were thousands of converted Valeri locked in crystal chambers. The surviving Valeri had managed to trap them there during the final days of the siege, unable to kill their own people but knowing they were too dangerous to release. Tell them we're working on it, she said, knowing it was probably a lie. Back in space, Elder Kira stood on the observation deck of the damaged Indomitable, looking down at her wounded world. Beside her, Teo worked at a human computer terminal, trying to understand the alien technology. Elder, he said quietly, the humans saved us, but their ship is dying. Commander Park says they don't have the resources to repair the damage. What does that mean for us? It means they'll have to leave soon, and when they do, we'll be alone again. Kira felt a deep sadness wash over her. The humans had risked everything to save her people, but the victory was incomplete. The Scourge breeding facility still existed. Thousands of converted Valeri were still trapped in their crystalline prisons, and somewhere out in the dark spaces between stars, other Scourge fleets were probably already heading toward their world. Teo, have you been studying the human computer systems? Yes, Elder. They're very different from our crystal technology, but I'm beginning to understand how they work. And their weapons? Their engineering? Yes, Elder. The humans have been very generous with sharing their knowledge. Kira made a decision that would have shocked her ancestors. Then we must learn everything we can. Our people chose peace for 1,000 years, but peace did not protect us. Perhaps it is time to choose strength. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Commander Hyun-woo Park received a message that changed everything. Sir, So Young said with excitement in her voice, I'm getting a transmission from Earth Command. A full battle fleet is on its way to our position. How long until they arrive? 6 days, sir. Hyun-woo felt relief wash over him, but it was mixed with worry. That's good news, but I'm not sure we can keep the ship running for 6 more days. Taeyun's voice came over the intercom. Commander, I might have a solution. The Valeri have offered to help us repair the ship using their crystal technology. It won't be perfect, but it might buy us the time we need. Can their technology integrate with ours? I think so, sir. Their power crystals could replace our damaged fusion reactors at least temporarily, and their structural crystals are incredibly strong. We could use them to reinforce the damaged sections of the hull. It was a desperate plan, but it was their only chance. Do it. Over the next few days, something unprecedented happened. Human engineers worked alongside Valeri crystal shapers to create hybrid technology that had never existed before. Human weapon systems powered by Valeri energy crystals. Human computers enhanced with Valeri processing stones. Human armor reinforced with crystal lattice, but the most important collaboration was happening in the medical bay, where Jae-sung was working with Valeri healers to find a cure for the scourge infection. The key is the connection between mind and body, explained a Valeri healer named Sung-min. The scourge infection disrupts this connection, but if we can restore it using crystal resonance, combined with human neural stimulation technology, Jae-sung added, we might be able to break the infection's hold on the converted people. They worked for hours, combining human medical knowledge with ancient Valeri healing techniques. Finally, they achieved a breakthrough. I think we've got it, Jae-sung announced. It's not perfect, and it won't work on everyone, but we can save some of them. The first test was on a converted Valeri who had been Elder Kira's own daughter. The combined human Valeri treatment took 3 hours and required precise coordination. Between medical technology and crystal healing, when it was over, the young Valeri opened her eyes and spoke her first free words in weeks. Mother? Elder Kira wept tears of joy as she held her daughter. For the first time since the nightmare began, there was real hope, but their celebration was interrupted by an urgent message from So Young on the bridge. Commander, we're detecting multiple ships approaching the system. They're not human. Scourge? No, sir. These are different. They're using technology signatures I've never seen before. On the main screen, a dozen alien vessels appeared. They were sleek and beautiful, unlike the organic horror of Scourge bioships. A communication signal came through the speakers. This is Admiral Yuki of the Centauri Defense Force. We received reports of a Scourge attack in this system. Are there any survivors? Hainwu smiled. The Valeri distress calls had finally reached someone else willing to help. This is Commander Park of the Earthship Indomitable. We have survivors and we could use some assistance. Commander Park, Admiral Yuki's voice carried surprise and respect. We heard what you did here. 1 human ship against an entire scourge. Fleet. The story is spreading across the galaxy. We did what anyone should have done. No, Commander. You did what only humans would have done. And because of that, the galaxy is beginning to hope again. As the Centauri ships took position around the damaged Indomitable, Hyun-woo realized that something important had changed. The message from deep space reached the Kepler 442 system just as the sun was rising over the rebuilt Valeri capital. Captain So-young Kim, now promoted to commander after the battle, stood on the bridge of the repaired Indomitable and read the transmission with growing horror. Sir, she called to Commander Hyun-woo Park, you need to see this immediately. The message was from a human deep space monitoring station on the edge of known space. The words were simple but terrifying. Massive Scourge fleet detected heading toward Kepler 442. Estimated arrival, 7 days. Fleet size, over 300 bioships. This is not a raid. This is an invasion. Hyun-woo felt his blood turn cold. 300 ships. The first attack had been 67 ships, and they had barely survived that with help from the Centauri Defense Force and the Valeri crystal technology. Get me Admiral Yuki and Elder Kira immediately. Within minutes, the observation deck was filled with the leaders of 3 species, all staring at the tactical display that showed the approaching nightmare. The Scourge fleet was massive, easily 10 times larger than anything they had faced. They're coming back to finish what they started, Admiral Yuki said grimly. The Centauri officer was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. And this time, they're bringing everything. Elder Kira studied the display with her daughter Hana at her side. Both Valeri had changed since the first battle. Where once they had been purely peaceful, now they carried crystal weapons and wore armor made from human Valeri hybrid technology. Why so many ships? Kira asked. They must know we destroyed their breeding facility. Because of what we did. Here, Hyun-woo realized. We didn't just save the Valeri. We proved the Scourge could be beaten. Word has spread across the galaxy. Other species are starting to resist instead of just running away. Teo, who had become the liaison between human and Valeri forces, pulled up intelligence reports on his tablet. The Scourge are being driven back on multiple fronts. The Nexus Coalition defeated a Scourge fleet near Rigel, the Tau. Republic destroyed 2 bioships that attacked their mining colonies. Everyone is fighting back now. So they're coming here to make an example, Admiral Yuki concluded. Destroy this system completely. Show the galaxy what happens when you resist them. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. The combined human Centauri Valeri force included the damaged Indomitable 12 Centauri warships and about 50 Valeri defense vessels equipped with the new hybrid technology. Against 300 Scourge bioships, they had no chance. We need to evacuate, Admiral Yuki said. Get the Valeri survivors off-world before the fleet arrives. No, Elder Kira said firmly. This is our world, our home. We will not run again. Elder, with respect, this isn't about courage. This is about mathematics. We can't win this fight. Medical Officer Jae Sung-yoon entered the room carrying a tablet full of research data. Over the past months, he had been working with Valeri healers to perfect a cure for Scourge infection. His latest discovery was disturbing. I've been analyzing the bioship debris from the first battle, he announced. The Scourge aren't just a hive mind controlled by queen creatures. They're a collective consciousness made up of billions of absorbed minds from conquered species. What does that mean? Hyan Wu asked. It means every person they convert doesn't just become a soldier, they become part of the Scourge's intelligence network. The entity we're fighting has the combined knowledge and memories of thousands of different species. Teo looked up from his tablet with excitement. But that could also be their weakness. If they're all connected, then disrupting that connection might cause the entire fleet to shut down. How do we disrupt it? The same way we cure infected individuals, Jae Sung explained. Crystal resonance combined with quantum interference. But the scale would be enormous. We'd need a resonance generator powerful enough to affect an entire fleet. Elder Kira's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The planetary crystal network, the one our ancestors built to power the defense systems. Could it work? Hyan Wu asked. Maybe, Kira said slowly. But it would require every crystal on the planet working in perfect harmony, and the power requirements would be enormous. Chief Engineer Daeyun Choi's voice came over the intercom. Commander, I might have a solution for the power problem. What if we use the Indomitable's fusion reactors to overload the crystal network? Would that work? In theory, yes. But the ship would have to be connected directly to the planetary network. And the energy feedback would probably destroy the ship completely. The room fell silent again. Commander Park looked around at the faces of his allies. These people had already sacrificed so much. The Valeri had lost their world and millions of their people. The Centauri had risked their ships to help strangers. His own crew had already given their lives in the first battle. There might be another way, said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Marine Colonel Su Jin Han entering the room. She had been leading training exercises with the new Valeri human marine units, teaching crystal warriors how to fight alongside enhanced humans. What if we don't try to fight the entire fleet at once? She continued. What if we take out their command ships first, then let the rest collapse without coordination? Admiral Yuki shook his head. The command ships will be heavily protected. In the center of the fleet, we'd never get close enough. Not with ships, Su-Jin agreed. But with people? Small teams in stealth pods launched during the initial battle when all their attention is focused on our ships. A suicide mission, Hyan Wu said quietly. Maybe, but if it works, it saves everyone else. Elder Kira stepped forward. If you're planning to sacrifice yourselves for my people, then Valeri warriors will stand with you. This is our world to defend. And Centauri forces will provide support, Admiral Yuki added. We came here to help, not to run when things get difficult. Over the next 6 days, the most desperate plan in military history began to take shape. The Indomitable would connect to the Valeri crystal network and attempt to generate a disruption. Field, the Centauri fleet would engage the main Scourge force to buy time. And small teams of volunteers would attempt to board and destroy the Scourge command ships. The volunteers included Marines Aaron and BORAM Valeri Crystal Warriors led by Teo and even Admiral Yuki himself. Commander Park insisted on leading. One of the teams, despite protests from his crew. "Sir," So Young said as they prepared the stealth pods, "you don't have to do this. Let someone else lead the boarding mission." "These people risked everything to save strangers," Hyun-woo replied. "The least I can do is return the favor." On the day the Scourge fleet arrived, the Kepler 442 system was ready. Every ship in the Defense Force took position around the planet. The Indomitable connected its reactors to the Crystal Network, sending dangerous amounts of power through systems that had never been designed to handle such energy. "Sir," Yoon reported from engineering, "the Crystal Network is charging, but the feedback is already causing damage to our systems. We'll have maybe one shot at this." The Scourge fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a cloud of death. 300 bioships, each one a nightmare of organic technology and absorbed mines. At their center, massive command vessels that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. "All ships, this is Commander Park," Hyun-woo broadcast. "Today we show the galaxy that evil can be defeated. Today we prove that courage is stronger than fear. Attack!" The battle began with the fury of a dying star. Centauri energy weapons lanced out at the bioships while human missiles exploded in brilliant flashes. Valeri crystal cannons fired beams of pure light that cut through enemy hulls like paper, but there were so many of them. For every bioship they destroyed, 3 more took its place. The defense fleet was being overwhelmed despite their best efforts. "Launch the stealth pods," Hyun-woo ordered. The small pods streaked through the chaos of battle, carrying their volunteer crews toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Most of them were detected and destroyed, but 3 pods made it through. Commander Park's pod crashed into the hull of the largest command ship and began cutting its way inside. The interior was a nightmare of organic corridors and pulsing biomachinery. But the boarding team pressed forward, fighting converted creatures that had once been people from a dozen different worlds. "The control center should be ahead," Teo said. His crystal weapon cutting down a group of infected soldiers, they reached the heart of the ship to find something that defied description. It was part machine, part living creature, part nightmare. The collective consciousness of the Scourge made manifest in physical form. "Now!" Hyun-woo shouted. The team activated their quantum disruptors, devices built from human technology and Valeri crystals. The effect was immediate and devastating. The creature screamed with the voices of 1 billion absorbed minds as its connection to the fleet was severed across space. Bioships began to drift aimlessly as their coordinated intelligence collapsed. On the planet, Daiyun activated the crystal network, sending a pulse of disrupting energy through the entire system. The result was spectacular. Bioships throughout the fleet began to shut down as their hive mind connection was broken. Converted creatures collapsed as their forced programming failed, but victory came at a terrible cost. 1 year after the Great Battle, Commander So-young Kim stood on the bridge of the new UES Indomitable II and watched the sunrise over the rebuilt Valeri capital. The ship was a marvel of hybrid technology, combining human engineering with Valeri crystal systems and Centauri energy shields. It was stronger than the original Indomitable, faster, and carried weapons that could disrupt Scourge hive mind connections across an entire star system, but it was not the same ship. The original Indomitable lay in pieces on the surface of Kepler 442b. Its wreckage turned into a memorial for the crew members who had died defending this world. Commander Hyun-woo Park's name was carved in crystal at the center of the monument, along with the names of 143 other humans who had given their lives so that strangers might live. "Commander," called Lieutenant Haijin. "From the tactical station, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." So-young turned from the window. The bridge crew was different now, a mix of humans, Valeri, and Centauri officers working together as naturally as if they had trained together for years. It was something that would have been impossible before the Scourge attacks brought the galaxy together. "Put it on the main screen." Admiral Chun's familiar face appeared on the display. Behind him, So Young could see the bustling activity of Earth's military headquarters. The war against the Scourge had changed everything, turning humanity from a single species military into part of a vast galactic alliance. "Commander Kim," the admiral said, "congratulations on the successful liberation of the Vega colony. How many Scourge vessels were destroyed?" 15 bioships, sir, including 2 command vessels. We also freed over 2,000 converted colonists using the new treatment protocols. Excellent work. I have new orders for you. Long-range sensors have detected a massive Scourge concentration in the Andromeda approach. They appear to be massing for another major offensive. So Young felt her pulse quicken. The Andromeda approach was a cluster of systems near the edge of the galaxy, home to over 1 billion people across 12 different species. If the Scourge took those worlds, they would have the resources to launch attacks on the galactic core. What's our mission, sir? You're to lead a joint task force to investigate and, if possible, disrupt their operations. The force will include 30 ships from 7 different species, including the new Valeri crystal ships and the Centauri heavy cruisers. Understood, sir. When do we depart? As soon as possible. Commander, the success at Kepler 442 changed everything. For the first time in decades, the Scourge are losing more battles than they win. Species that had been hiding are coming out to fight, but they're also getting desperate, which makes them more dangerous. After the transmission ended, So Young walked through the corridors of her ship. The walls were lined with memorials to the heroes of the first battle. Pictures of Min-Ho Lee working at his tactical station. Images of Dayun Choi in the engine room, pushing the ship beyond its limits. A hologram of Commander Park giving his final speech before the boarding mission. In the medical bay, Dr. Jae Sung-yoon was training a team of multi-species healers in the latest techniques for treating Scourge infection. The cure rate had improved dramatically over the past year, rising from 30% to over 80% for recent infections. "Commander," he said as she entered, "we've had another breakthrough. The new quantum crystal resonators can break Scourge control even in cases where the infection has been present for months. That's incredible news. How many people does that mean we can save? Potentially millions. Every world we liberate, we can now free most of the converted population." In the Marine Bay, Colonel Soo-Jin Han was leading training exercises with the new Joint Species Marine units. Human soldiers worked alongside Valeri Crystal Warriors and Centauri energy troops, learning tactics that combine the strengths of all 3 species. "The key is coordination," Soo-Jin explained to a group of new recruits. "Humans excel at close combat and tactical flexibility. Valeri are masters of energy manipulation and healing. Centauri specialize in long-range precision and defensive systems. Together we're unstoppable." One of the young Valeri warriors, a student of Teo's named Jinwoo, raised his hand. "Colonel, what if we encounter converted people from our own species? How do we fight them without losing ourselves?" Soo-Jin's expression grew serious. "That's the hardest part of this war. You have to remember that those creatures were once people. Like us, our job isn't to destroy them. Our job is to free them. Every shot we fire, every tactic we use, should be aimed at breaking their chains, not ending their lives." Later that day, So Young met with Elder Kira and Admiral Yuki in the ship's conference room. The 3 leaders had become close friends. Over the past year, united by shared loss and common purpose. "The task force is assembling," Admiral Yuki reported. 12 human ships, 8 Centauri vessels, 6 Valeri crystal ships, and 4 ships from the newer Alliance members. "It's the largest joint operation we've ever attempted." Elder Kira looked older than she had a year ago. The loss of so many of her people, including her own daughter Hannah in the final battle, had marked her deeply. But she had not allowed grief to break her spirit. "My people have learned much about war in this past year," she said quietly. "We understand now that sometimes violence is the only way to preserve peace. But we must not let this war change us into something we don't recognize." "What do you mean?" So Young asked. "The Scourge are what they are because they lost the ability to choose. They became slaves to their own biology, their need to consume and convert. We must fight them without becoming like them? Admiral Yuki nodded. The moment we start treating this as a war of extermination instead of liberation, we lose everything we're fighting for. As the task force prepared to depart, So Young stood once more on the observation deck, looking down at the world that had become the symbol of resistance throughout the galaxy. The Valeri capital gleamed with new crystal spires that incorporated human architectural techniques. Gardens filled with flowers from a dozen worlds grew between buildings designed by Centauri engineers. This was what they were fighting for. Not just survival, but the possibility of different species working together, learning from each other, becoming stronger through cooperation rather than conquest. "Commander," came Teo's voice over the intercom. He had been promoted to lieutenant. Commander and now served as the ship's cultural liaison officer. "We're receiving the final ship from the task force. It's the Centauri vessel Harmony, carrying a full medical research team." "Excellent. Signal the fleet. We depart in 1 hour." As the 30 ships of the Liberation Task Force formed up around, the indomitable So Young felt a familiar mixture of fear and determination. They were heading into the unknown, facing an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for generations. Some of them would not return, but they were not the same species that had faced the scourge alone a year ago. They were part of something larger. Now, an alliance built on the foundation of sacrifice and hope that Commander Park and his crew had laid down with their lives. "All ships, this is Commander Kim," she broadcast to the fleet. 1 year ago, a single human ship answered a call for help and changed the course of galactic history. Today we carry forward their legacy. We go not as conquerors, but as liberators. We fight not for territory or resources, but for the fundamental right of all sentient beings to choose their own destiny. The ships began their jump to hyperspace, carrying their crews toward whatever waited in the Andromeda approach. Behind them, the memorial to the original Indomitable caught the light of the setting sun, its crystal walls reflecting the words carved there in a dozen languages. They thought no help was coming. They were wrong. As the last ship disappeared into hyperspace, a new message began broadcasting from the memorial. It was Elder Kira's voice, but the words were those of Commander Hyun-Woo Park, recorded moments before his final mission. "Today, we show the galaxy what humans do when backed into a corner. We don't go quietly. We roar back with the fury of those who refuse to let evil triumph. And we keep fighting until every prisoner is free, every chain is broken, and every darkness is driven back by the light of hope." The message would repeat. Every day at sunset, a reminder to all who heard it that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite that fear. That sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemy, but from inspiring others to stand up and fight for what is right. The war against the scourge would continue for years to come. There would be victories and defeats, heroes and villains, moments of triumph and periods of despair. But the galaxy would never again be the same place it was before a single human warship came roaring from the abyss to answer a call for help. In the depths of space, other civilizations watched and learned. When the darkness comes and when all hope seems lost, somewhere in the void, ships are getting ready to remind the universe that evil can be defeated, that courage can overcome fear, and that no one fights alone when humanity is part of the equation. The story of the Indomitable had ended, but the legend would live forever. And in a galaxy full of wonders and terrors,